AsSalamu Alykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to another episode of Barakah Broadcast. In these episodes, we'll be listening to people from our Muslim community and talking about the struggles they faced through their journey and try to learn and benefit from them, Insha Allah, and try to bring the ummah together one broadcast at a time. Today, our guest is Kh.Amira Sabetic.
AsSalamu Alykum Kh.Amira. How are you doing today?
Alhamdulillah, how are you, Muneeb?
I'm good, alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khair for joining us today. So to start off, I would like you to introduce a little bit about yourself.
All right, so my name is Kh.Amira Sabetic. I'm currently a teacher. I teach social studies. I teach both 8th and high school. I studied child and adolescent development at San Jose State University. And from there, I went to get my master's at the University of San Francisco, where I got my master's actually in education. I have both a multiple subject teaching credential and working towards a single subject teaching credential as well. So yeah, definitely a lot educational background. I love learning, so I kind of wanted to be in an environment where I can teach others to love learning as well.
So you mentioned that you teach classes in a school from like 8th grade and high school. What were your struggles getting there, and also studying in college and getting your master's degree? What were your struggles that you faced?
Yeah, so at first, it's really funny to think that I'm a teacher now, because I used to always say, like, I don't ever want to teach. Like, I don't see myself actually doing this job, right? So really just kind of figuring out a way of how to get there, and really what thing I wanted to do with my life, especially coming to the United States as a refugee in 1994. I didn't know how many options America gave my family, right? I was the first to go to college in my family, to get, even a high school diploma compared to a bachelor's and a master's degree. So really also the language barrier that I had growing up, especially as an only child, I really didn't have very many people to lean onto other than like my cousins. But that's just a little different, right? Like, we're still in this foreign land, like we're all growing. And so yeah, that was one of the big challenges, and just thinking like, man, am I ever going to get to that place, right? Because it's not, obviously education is not cheap either when you want to have an amazing education. But just really just thinking about the stuff that I didn't have, or that my parents didn't have, and they wanted to give me a better future. That was one of the key things that pushed me to really be where I am today, and kind of just fight for my education and my place in this world.
So you mentioned, what were your struggles back in the time when you came here as a refugee, and how you had to go through stuff and get to where you are now?
Yeah. Oh, so when we first came to the United States, I actually started living in Cupertino. And we were actually living, it was my family with 2-3 other families in an apartment, right? And so eventually just watching that American dream, and my parents, ended up owning their own house. My dad now, owns his own business. Just really seeing that platform that they kind of set up for me, and just kind of saying, you know what, like, I can overcome anything that I set my mind to, which is definitely what kind of pushed me to where I'm at today. And sure, like I said, the language barrier was one thing that was really a big struggle, because going to school, I didn't really have, somebody that could help me with my homework or anything like that, right? I just had to learn by myself. And, especially being English as a second language, it's not easy, right? Kind of just wondering, where do I fit in? Is there other people that are like me? Especially being a Bosnian, when people don't even know what Bosnia was for the longest time, right? So definitely kind of looking at those struggles, going from there and just saying, you know what, I see the way that my parents struggled and did everything they could to set up a way for me to be successful. So yeah, I just took that and went, and, with each coming year, I kind of just grew, it's kind of shaped who do I want to be today. And yes, even after my bachelor's degree, I didn't know for years what I wanted to do and get my master's in, right? So mashallah, I finally did, and here I am. But
you mentioned that you're a Bosnian, and also being a Muslim. How much of an impact did it have while you were in school and while you were going through your bachelor's and master's degree?
Yeah. So actually, I really didn't understand how much my identity and, who I really was in society until I actually went to grad school, because, I have light skin, I kind of look like a very regular American person. So a lot of people don't even know that I am Muslim, right? Unless they hear my name and they hear Amira. They're like, oh, wow, that's Arabic. Where does that come from? So unless people heard my name, they just thought that I was somebody completely different, right? So in that sense, I would say that I've had a lot of privilege because of the color of my skin and everything growing up. But I didn't realize that until I got to my master's program, where they kind of helped me really dive into that and, realizing like, wow, how much privilege I did have and how this piece of me, stuff that people didn't really know, it didn't essentially really affect me because nobody really knew it unless they got to know me, right? If I've had people make even comments about Muslims to me and I'm like, hello, I'm Muslim too. Like that hurt me, right? But yeah, I think I really had that privilege of people not really knowing. But once they did get to know me, I also, fortunately, too, I had in high school a lot of Bosnians. Sure, they were my cousins, but that's kind of what helped people see who Bosnians were, right? And also like even just learning about myself, like that's another reason why I'm really excited about teaching history, a subject that I didn't really like growing up, right? But that's also because they never talked about my country. They never talked about anything that happened on my side of the world. And I'm like, hello, there was this huge genocide and nobody talks about it, right? I actually in college one time, my professor was talking about Sarajevo and geography. And I actually had a friend in the class one time who raised her hand and was like, Amira is actually Bosnian. And she instantly just stopped talking about the history. Like she was just like, oh, might be like a touchy subject. Like I could just tell people were like, didn't want to ask, right? Like, what's this massive war that went on? Like, why are you even in the US? But definitely I'm not so, again, like I said, because of my skin color, a lot of people didn't know where I was from, but kind of realizing like, hey, I do have to put my voice out there and I do have to show other students that it does matter who you are and you should be accepted. So that's why I'm very, very grateful to be where I'm at today.
So for context, can you tell people what Sarajevo is? The people who don't know what it is.
Yeah, so Sarajevo is actually the capital of Bosnia and Herzegovina. So many, many years ago, a lot of people would know the country as Yugoslavia. And Yugoslavia, after some time, due to, they actually wanted to wipe out the Muslim men, right? The Bosnian Muslim, they wanted to take them out of Bosnia. So that's when this whole genocide kind of happened. But Sarajevo is essentially after the split of Yugoslavia. Sarajevo is the capital of Bosnia. But I was actually myself born in Banja Luka, which is actually a very Serbian, it's like the Serbian Republic now, right? So that's also something too. I'm sure I'll face some challenges when I go back home as a Muslim in that town, for sure.
So what gave you the realization that now it's like time to show, yes, I'm a Bosnian, I'm a Muslim, and I need to encourage other people to show who they are?
Yeah. Growing up, I always was told like, once you get older, your religion pulls you, you get pulled closer to your religion, right? And that was just something that obviously as a kid, I didn't understand because my parents were always like, I want my student to enjoy life the way that she wants, my child to enjoy life the way that she wants to. So they were really pushed me to do a lot. Like I used to go to Sunday school and I used to actually learn a lot about prayer and everything. But kind of over time, I started noticing myself getting more Americanized and I kind of started drifting away from that. So I think like that saying goes, like once you start getting older, you become more curious. So that's kind of what's bringing me back to really just wanting to know more, wanting to learn, wanting to grow, and just, spread my love for, Muslim people and just share who I am and share that to the world. Another huge thing that kind of brought me to where I'm at today is my cousin had a little baby boy and I started watching him grow. And actually before I even applied to San Jose State as a child and adolescent development major, I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. Like, it's interesting to watch him grow. And I just had such a love for this little human being that I was like, okay, I want to learn about how people think, what people think. What are they thinking about from when they're very, very little to, the age of 18. So yeah, so definitely, so it brought me to where I'm at.
You mentioned that your cousins had baby kind of inspired you to like learn more about children. What were other things that inspired you to continue going and continue going through your struggles?
Yeah, I think also as well, just seeing that after you set goals for yourself and after you like kind of just say, okay, let me create a plan and kind of do things little by little, which was also something that I had to learn myself. Because again, being the first in having an educational background, it's just in my family, I really had to set the platform. But once you see little successes coming, like, and saying like, okay, wow, you actually can succeed if you push yourself to do something. I think that that's really kind of what was like, okay, I can actually do this. And little by little, the more goals that I continue to set for myself, the more I was able to accomplish.
Were you in Bosnia back in your childhood?
No, I was born in Bosnia and I came to the United States like a month before my second birthday. So I am like super Americanized. Like people also don't even know that I speak English as a second language because there's like no accent there. But that's essentially what it is. I actually have not been back since. My family, we just worked together to bring the rest of my family here. So I feel very fortunate for that. But yeah, it was never really too safe to go back at first. And then with all my family being here, with the American lifestyle, like a very, very busy, fast-paced life, I just never really had time to go back essentially still. But yeah, so I definitely did actually not get to experience growing up in Bosnia, but definitely as a Bosnian in the United States.
So was there something that impacted you while you were younger that also like stayed with you to like today and keeps inspiring you to keep going?
Yeah, I think just knowing that whatever I was always just told, whatever I set my mind to, whatever I do, I can achieve, right? Like the sky is the limit. That's the one thing that I've always been told. As well as like the one thing I always had in the back of my mind is if I can keep God close to myself as well. And, if I could kind of say a prayer or two to myself, here and there, that good things will happen. So that's kind of just the thing, like whatever I do, kind of Elzabillah before I do it, right? And that's just kind of the one thing that has really stuck with me even as a kid. But yeah, for sure.
So finally, as we're short on time as well, can you say something to the youth that struggle today with different problems and while going through school during COVID as well and struggling through that? Is there something that you could say that could inspire them?
Yeah, just don't keep it to yourself, right? Don't keep anything bottled up. Speak to somebody, reach out to people. Even if you think somebody might not be your friend right now, you never know what you can learn from them, right? So I think just having an open mind and kind of be willing to let people in and kind of share your experiences. Not only could you help yourself, but you could also be helping somebody else, right? That might be afraid to speak out. So I think just really just being proud of who you are. Obviously with time, like even if you do face struggles, just think of it as a learning experience and just push through to overcome anything.
So, Jazakallah khairan, Kh.Amira, for joining us today, and everybody else that will be watching this. Please join us next time, inshallah. Wassalamu Alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Thank you for watching today's episode. I would like you to give me your input on my content, and see you next time, inshallah.